itself, because we do not have a clear exit strategy as it is right now. But AMISOM is pulling out of some of its peacekeeping troops also in Somalia. We know Ugandan troops, so far, they're out. I don't know which other troops actually will be out, but there is a timeline. I can't remember. Was it supposed to be in February or they extended? Maybe it is
this year to 2021.
This year to 2021. Yes. So it's actually ongoing to 2021. So let's just discuss about that particular aspect of AMISOM, and in light of the exit strategy that we are also putting on the table. Then we move on to other issues as well. Professor Nomidawa.
My way forward will be not to have the Kenyan army and the Ethiopian army directly engage with Somalia, but bring South African army, bring Congolese army, bring those people who are far away from the war zone, such that if Africa is serious about solving its own problem, then you solve the problem, because so long as Kenyans are there, they're reconfigured differently from South Africans who will be fighting to maintain peace and build, help build the country. That is a very clear strategy that has been used historically elsewhere. Why are we not doing it?
Well, go ahead, Pep. Ambassador, go ahead.
Okay. Well, Noah has introduced a very important element that was very difficult even at the beginning when Kenya and Ethiopia were engaging themselves in the war in Somalia, because the international practice is to always avoid neighboring nations being in a peacekeeping mission, because should there something go wrong, and then your neighbors, you have really a long-term challenge, and so his suggestion that okay, let's get the two countries perhaps scale back and move away so that you can bring others. But that is not an exit. The exit, and what is implied in what he's saying, the mission has not been accomplished. What was the mission? Help Somalia build a national army, to stabilize the country, make a viable government, have elections, have a constitution, start addressing development issues. Then you can have an exit strategy. Exit strategy that is time-bound, we have said on this forum here, of all the things I agree with Trump, is one of them which he has been saying, you don't give time-bound exit strategy. You give mission accomplished time strategy, not time-bound. Because when you are fighting a symmetrical war, all they do is melt and wait for your time to elapse, and they come back. So it's a wrong strategy by all means. Talking about 2021 and the rest. Will you have achieved your benchmarks? That remains to be done. So to me, I think what he's saying is very important, that let's get Kenya out of it. But the reason Kenya went, because we were being under attack, our economy was suffering, so we had to go. But now we can say we've stabilized it, let somebody else come in. And so that Kenya gets out, Ethiopia gets out, then you can have neutrality. Because part of the problem that is there, as we have said before, the two powers are not reading from the same strategy.
All right, so they're not reading from the same strategy. Maybe also we could ask, what is the role of the East African standby force? And how can they come in handy where AMISOM has not really, maybe to just try and argument, the offices or the forces of AMISOM down on the ground? What is the role of the East African standby force?
I think we are still going back then to talk of Kenya and so Ethiopia, because East African standby strategy is all the same countries.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fact the forces which are there are part of East African standby strategy. And what he's saying is that let's get others, maybe ECOMOG or Southern Africa, not Eastern Africa.
Not Eastern Africa.
Yeah.
On the exit strategy, first of all, it will be foolhardy to exit. In fact, they should have a surge in Somalia. By wherever troops they will find, whether it's from West Africa, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, we should have a surge in Somalia. You know what is happening in the last 2 days? Even before AMISOM leaves certain sectors, Mogadishu, has initiated a bloodshed in Gedo and Bulahawa region. They're actually fighting in a clannish sense in that sector. And you can see what's happening. Al-Shabaab is celebrating now. What is happening in southwest sector, the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah the SNA, the Somali National Army, are cannibalizing each other. Meanwhile, Al-Shabaab is waiting on the sidelines. Don't be surprised if this is the behavior of Mogadishu, and if AMISOM is going to exit today, Dibao, Al-Shabaab will be back in Mogadishu. They will be controlling things there. We got to be serious. I mean, Mogadishu has got to be serious about what was and what conflicts it wants to address. Is it first stabilize with the help of others, or start fighting, engaging in some clannish wars for political expediency, that the elections are coming in December and January of 2021?
But the whole scenario remains to be very amorphous, because it seems then we are there without any, it's like we're really groping in the dark. Are we aware of what sort of mileage we've made so far? What are the metrics are we using to try and analyze? And I think also African Union can help us this, to tell us this is the medium term. We've achieved such and such from the checklist. We've stabilized this particular region. All the forces in Somalia, the armed forces in Somalia also has been boosted since AMISOM, boots came or stepped on the ground.
Well, Shakespeare once said, cry havoc and let loose the dogs of war. President in Somalia is on a re-election mode. He wants to come back into power, and he is, through battle and through politics, trying to engage certain constituencies in the country. It's really pathetic for him to actually say that there's going to be a one-man, one-vote in Somalia. I mean, even us Kenyans over here could see that there's not going to be one man, one vote over there. So I think that the brouhaha, the political brouhaha there, is just about politics or trying to get an extension of his term. I think President Farmajo has failed in every sector that you could bring up. If you had cards here, we'd all give him one, not even two. And I also think that the man in Jubaland has also not spectacularly failed the way Farmajo has, but the man in Juba also, our man in Juba there, and he's our man in Juba, has been, he was an Al-Shabaab before he was changed and became a respectable clan leader. I think the deal was made over here in Garissa at night. And I think that our policy of, and I agree with our learned friend over on the right side, I think that this policy of the policy in Somalia is not really complicated. And everybody tries to make everything so complicated in Somalia. What is so complicated about 5-10 million people running after camels? There's nothing really complicated about that.
Thank you.
We just have to get the policy right.
But
I just want to finish this point about this. Please, just a little point more.
Because the question I asked and what you're actually telling me is diametrically different.
Yeah, but this is the last point. I'm coming to that point. In Somaliland, just 1 second. In Somaliland, people have made peace. That is in northern Somalia. The clans sat down and they made peace, and they've made an administration. They built an army, they built a police, and they've built institutions of democratic government. Why is it not happening in the south? It is not happening in the south because the vested interests of money and power are not allowing it to do it. The ones inside and the ones from without. The ones in the Middle East and the ones in the region. We have to understand that unless there is a Somali state there that controls the territory of the former Somali Republic, what is going to happen is this place is going to metastasize into something completely different. And then we're going to need 500,000 troops to go in there and another 500,000 police officers. We need to really do two things. Either we leave Somalia to its own and let them butcher themselves, or we decide we're going to do the right thing and put the state in there and fix it, because this is an African nation that's part of the AU.
Right. Back to my question, which was clearly avoided by, not answered by Ahmed Hashi. He chose his own way. Let's hear from Dr. Khanenje.
Yeah.
Stand by force.
Yeah.
No. With regard to metrics, and
I can't answer everything.
But have you ever realized Ahmed Hashi always has his own answers? If I ask this question, he's going on a different tangent altogether.
You have to listen first.
Dibal, you know,
Okay, let's continue with Khanenja.
Dibal, you know, spokesperson, I think he's been one, are trained not to answer all questions asked by journalists. That's one of the first training any spokesperson goes.
But I'm a very brave person who answers all questions. You know. I just think that I should leave some of the meat to my colleagues. You know.
Then let him not answer that straight. Yeah.
But let him speak and then we can.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Yes. If it were possible that you know, we could wall ourselves off and completely forget about, let's say, our neighbors, then we can say, you know what, let's just pull out and that's it. But these two countries, they are joined at the hip. It's virtually impossible for us to actually ignore what goes on in Somalia. Now, what will constitute metrics? Number one, it's always very easy to get into conflict. It's never easy to get out of it, especially in a situation of intractable conflict with increasing regional and international interests. The time when we went into Somalia, initially as KDF, then of course we rehat it was a very different environment than actually what it is today. Now, granted, Kismayo was able to be liberated from Al-Shabaab. That's an achievement. They had space where they could organize and train, and they literally rained terror on everybody else, and we were able to reduce that. Does it mean we've gotten rid of Al-Shabaab? Of course, no. Number two, there are certain progress already going on because of the presence of African Union forces that has actually allowed even that government to be in Mogadishu itself. Remember, previously they used to operate from outside. You know, anyone who remembers, it was a time the government was in Baidoa and most of them were living in Nairobi. But right now they can actually live in Mogadishu, even though it's hard enough to control it. And so there are certain achievements. However, where the country is right now, you know, frankly speaking, we can't say once they get A, B, C, and D, then we leave, because they still need to build infrastructure. I believe they will have to redo that constitution somehow to be able to speak to the tension that exists between states and then the central government, and how they can accommodate, ethnicities in a way that can actually be acceptable. Right now they have a 4.5 model, but it's working to some certain extent, but then it's not addressing some ongoing issues. The question of Somaliland hasn't been resolved yet. You know, are they going to remain like that? Will they ever decide to become part of the federal government? And so it is not something we can say once we achieve this and, you know, we get there, because it's going to take honestly an effort of all these players, but also importantly, for the region, and this is part of things we're discussing at the UN, IGAD summit, for some of these foreign interests to be mitigated, because as long as they're there, and for instance, the Gulf War is being exported in here, in Somalia and other, it becomes increasingly difficult, Dibal, to be able to actually solve a problem, because you cannot have an independent agenda as the African Union, or even as IGAD, or even East African Community, when you're having a lot of pervasive interests that are so stuck. And of course, the internal clan dynamics and the fact there is an election coming up with leaders who are not speaking to each other. It's extremely difficult. So with regard to certain success that we can actually be able to talk about, there is a lot of success has been talked about. That is why the president lives in Mogadishu today. That is why we have some level of buffer between, us and the other guys. But with regard to the timelines, I agree with Ambassador. You cannot tell your enemy when you're planning to leave, because then Al-Shabaab will simply sit idle and wait until you get out.